What's up, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the amazing Truth Talk. And this is your host, yours truly, General Manager of 2K Universe and CEO of TCN, Sean Truthman. Um, Thank you for your viewership and for your subscribership. We greatly appreciate it. And we're emanating live to you from NYC in a high rise. And we're going to talk about a lot of the different developments that have occurred in 2K Universe since the inaugural kickoff, which featured Raw and SmackDown on the same broadcast. So, without further ado, we're going to take you back and just do a recap on some of the happenings, the rivalries, and the stories that have built up until Money in the Bank, which started with, of course, WWE Payback, and we're just going to run through here. These are the past rivalries, obviously, that have concluded, and we're going to talk about those rivalries in detail in just a few moments. So, we started off in April, and there were six major feuds which heated up the locker room in the ring, and you can go back and take a look at some of that content, and I hope you enjoy it. And for those of you who have been keeping up, I really, really, truly appreciate that, and TCN appreciates it too. So, over on Monday Night Raw, we had three major feuds. Obviously, as you can see, Bison Youngblood and the Eater of Worlds himself, Bray Wyatt, excuse me, were having some problems, and Wyatt looking to make a name for himself and stop the initial rise of this, Native American beast himself, Bison Youngblood, and so those two had some issues they wanted to hash out, and Monday Night Raw was the place to do it. And moving along, as we spoke about it before, Zero's Ward making his dream come true, challenging one of his mentors and one of his favorite professional wrestlers, Rick Martel. That challenge was answered by Martel in true pro wrestling fashion in the middle of the ring. And the third and what is being called the main event story of Monday Night Raw in the past 3 months has been the man they call Sting and his opponent, his arch nemesis, Joseph Ward. Again, I spoke about this on the inaugural episode of Truth Talk. Joseph Ward and Sting's feud was called the best match in a series. Amazing, just amazing, and we definitely appreciate all the support and all the viewers who tuned in for the phenomenal matches that these two had throughout the time that it's been thus far. And so moving over to SmackDown, John Ivy looking to make his dream come true by taking on one of his favorite people in the entire world in the pro wrestling industry. Certainly has never shied away from it. Rob Van Dam. Van Dam makes a cameo appearance on SmackDown to address this situation, and not before long, these two were in the ring settling their differences. Moving along, perhaps the longest feud out of the entire 3 months thus far, and the most brutal feud, which ended in not so typical fashion. Zander, Sokolov and the Undertaker. Personal animosity here. The Helsinki powerhouse looking to make a name for himself on SmackDown and gun for the richest prize in our business, the WWE Championship. But before he could do that, and before he could achieve that goal, the Undertaker stepped directly in his path. And of course, it was the beginning of what would everyone thought would be just an awesome dance to WWE Payback and extended beyond that point. We're going to talk about the feud between John Cena and Hannibal Matsuda. Again, this is for those of you who have been watching. Hannibal Matsuda showed up, and the commentators and those of us around kind of penned the nickname Big Evil. We had no idea who he was, where he was from, and John Cena looked to stop the the second coming, so to speak, or at least that's what Hannibal Matsuda calls it, the second coming, his arrival on SmackDown. John Cena looking to make a name for himself yet again as the face of WWE and stop Hannibal Matsuda, and this rivalry was nothing short of a classic. Nothing short of a classic. It was incredible. So we're going to go and we're going to leave the news and we're going to go to the official rivalry page. And we're going to start with, of course, Bray Wyatt and Bison Youngblood. Now, we're going to try to recap as short as possible. So, basically, Bison Youngblood and Bray Wyatt show up on the scene, tearing the house down. They're attacking each other from behind every week on Monday Night Raw, and Bray Wyatt has only one goal in mind. And that goal is to take out Bison Youngblood before this guy absolutely makes a name for himself in the WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship ranks. As we all know, Braun Strowman said to Bray Wyatt backstage that if he became WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion, that he would be the first to become #1 contender. And of course, hearing those words and heeding those words, Bison Youngblood opted to go after Bray Wyatt, and he went on to defeat him at WWE Payback, the first initial pay-per-view of 2K Universe's second season. And that rivalry ended just as it began, in total chaos. But nonetheless, Bison Youngblood came out on top. We're going to move up here to John Cena and Hannibal Matsuda. As if enough hasn't already been said about Hannibal Matsuda. So Hannibal Matsuda shows up on SmackDown and he viciously and brutally attacks John Cena in a way that we've never seen before. And as I spoke about in the inaugural video on Truth Talk on the first episode, that right knee caused a lot of damage. John Cena showed up every single week on SmackDown and made his greatest effort to stop Hannibal Matsuda, but to no avail. And of course, Hannibal Matsuda making a name for himself by defeating John Cena at WWE Payback, letting everybody on the SmackDown roster know that not only had he arrived, but he was gunning for the richest prize in our business, the WWE Heavyweight Championship. Okay, so we're going to talk about the next feud on Monday Night Raw. One of my favorite feuds, and I'm sure many of the viewers out there truly did enjoy this feud. It was a true clinic of art, as I like to call it. Zero's Ward, the Ullman of Munich, Germany, took on Rick Martel in an unprecedented 3-month feud. These guys took it to each other every single week on Monday Night Raw. And then, of course, as most of you know, if you've been keeping up with the content on the Truthman and Company Network channel, Zero's Ward and Rick Martel had 3 of the best matches that I've ever seen between the two at any time. So at WWE Payback, WWE Extreme Rules, and of course WWE Money in the Bank. It was a culmination of 3 months of competition, and regardless of the respect and the admiration that these two had for each other, it was about wins and losses. And Rick Martel at Money in the Bank needed to win. It was a must-win situation because despite his admiration and his respect for the young man that he's mentoring, Zero's Ward, he was a loser. He had lost, and he needed to come to Money in the Bank. He needed to show up and bring his A game as best as he could to beat Zero's Ward. And as most of you know, that did not happen. Zero's Ward worked that left arm, and he absolutely systematically picked apart Rick Martel, picked up the victory by submission, and that match can be seen on the Truthman and Company Network channel on YouTube. You can take a look at that Money in the Bank pay-per-view match. It was one of my favorite matches that night on the card, and we definitely wish both these men well in their endeavors as they continue to pursue excellence in the locker room. We're going to talk about a recent feud that only actually went a month, 4 weeks. Bishop Bannon came to Monday Night Raw at my invitation. I certainly make no apology about this. He showed up despite the apprehension in the locker room of the tension that existed between he and Zero's Ward. And of course, I instructed Mr. Bannon to make his claim clear and to stay out of the business and the affairs, the professional affairs of Zero's Ward. He assured me that he could do that and that he had something else in mind. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I had no idea that Bishop Bannon was going to show the world that not only how talented he was, but that he could take down the biggest dog in the yard. And of course, I'm talking about the authority figure, Triple H. Initially, when these two locked up, it looked like something that was just going to be a madhouse massacre, and it did not turn out to be that way. Despite being a decorated veteran, a multi-time heavyweight champion, Triple H seemed to have a difficult time keeping up with Bishop Bannon. He is absolutely one of the most talented and technically sound in-ring specimens that we've ever seen, and Triple H got a hand of that, and it was one of the premier feuds over on Monday Night Raw. Obviously, most of you know Triple H lost this feud. The two had an amazing outing at WWE Extreme Rules. Bishop Bannon and Triple H actually competed in a 2 out of 3 falls match. It was an epic clash. We saw Triple H come out extremely aggressive, very strong, scoring that first fall, that first victory. And then we saw Bishop Bannon turn up the heat and come back to Triple H in that match and score the second fall. And then, of course, I don't know if it's customary for these matches to end this way, but there's been some controversy with countouts in 2K Universe as of late, and we'll address that in another broadcast. But for right now, that's exactly how Bishop Bannon picked up the second fall that would make him victorious over the King of Kings, Triple H, at Extreme Rules. And Triple H, of course, not feeling vindicated, challenged Bishop Bannon to another match at Money in the Bank, 1-on-1. Absolutely just catch as catch can, tough it out, an absolute battle, absolute war. Technicality was brought to this match, and these two certainly worked their very best in the ring. Obviously, Triple H was bested by Bishop Bannon, who picked up the victory with that horrible face choke, and he smothered the game to submission victory. Bishop Bannon now turns his eyes on other endeavors. Like I said before, we can't reveal what those endeavors are at this time, but if you stay tuned to the next episode of Monday Night Raw, I'm sure all questions will be answered as to the direction that Bishop Bannon is headed in 2K Universe Season 2. As I spoke about in the inaugural video, John Ivy and Rob Van Dam, two of the most decorated superstars of their generation, obviously in different places of the world. John Ivy has taken his act to Japan. He's been in London. He's been in Australia. He's been in South America. He's wrestled so many different places. And of course, Rob Van Dam and John Ivy, although they've seen similar parts of the world, they've never wrestled under the same promotion ever. And John Ivy extended the invitation for Rob Van Dam to come back to the WWE to dance one last time. And of course, those words were not met with any lighthearted laughter as Rob Van Dam came back, turned up the heat on John Ivy. And when he turned up the heat on Ivy, we discovered what an incredible, all-around, well-rounded performer John Ivy could be. And of course, I implore you to go back and take a look at some of those matches on SmackDown, and of course their big dances at Extreme Rules, at Money in the Bank, and of course at WWE Payback. It seems that there is a pattern with these open-ended challenges. Rob Van Dam at no time during this entire 3-month period, got the best of John Ivy. Some say it's age difference, some say it's a difference of skill, but I say that the better and best man won. John Ivy is quite possibly and arguably the best in-ring all-around performer on SmackDown, and he has demonstrated such with 3 consecutive pay-per-view victories over Rob Van Dam. And though Van Dam came close, he got no cigar. So right now we're looking at somebody who's performing extremely well in the power rankings, and it's just absolutely awesome. Would love to see where John Ivy is headed next. You have to wonder if there is United States Heavyweight Championship ambitions with this man. Let's move up and talk about a feud that everybody has been talking about. Most of all of our viewers have sent in questions. I certainly have had friends call me personally to talk about this feud and why it's over. Well, we're going to talk about that momentarily. But first, Zander Sokolov and The Undertaker. There is one night in particular that stands out about this feud, this 3-month epic clash between these two behemoth giants. The Lord of Darkness and the Helsinki Powerhouse collided for 3 months. One night stands out, and I think most people know what I'm talking about. Zander Sokolov showed up to Extreme Rules to compete against The Undertaker one-on-one. It was a no-holds-barred match. There were no rules. There were no disqualifications. There were no submissions. The only way to win this match is to incapacitate your opponent and gain the victory by pinfall. Zander Sokolov was taken to the limit by The Undertaker. But despite The Undertaker's efforts, he was bested by the Helsinki Powerhouse. Zander Sokolov pinned him 1, 2, 3. Later that night, ladies and gentlemen, the feud beneath Zander Sokolov and The Undertaker, John Ivy and Rob Van Dam were involved in a United States Heavyweight Championship controversy, as yours truly, Sean Truthman, the general manager of 2K Universe, I gave these two men an opportunity in a triple threat ladder match with AJ Styles for the United States Heavyweight Championship, in which Rob Van Dam won. He actually won the United States Heavyweight Championship, and he bested John Ivy, and he also bested AJ Styles. Now, after that match was over, the main event slot was a question mark. Nobody knew what the main event was, but AJ Styles, after the match was over, the ladder match, he exited the arena and he went to the back. Triple H, the authority figure, he went and he told him that he had a title match. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, how could that possibly be if AJ Styles was no longer the United States Heavyweight Championship or the champion? But it seems it didn't matter, because the match that I made between John Ivy, Rob Van Dam, and AJ Styles was voided. It was null and voided by Triple H at the authority of Vince McMahon. And so I have a job to do, and the only thing I can do is turn a sour lemon into the sweetest pumpkin. So what we did was we signed a match. If you're going to give AJ Styles back the United States Heavyweight Championship, then I'm going to make him defend it twice in one night, because that's what champions do. The worst part about this scenario is AJ Styles did not know that the number one contender, based on his performance earlier in the show, was Zander Sokolov. Ladies and gentlemen, it is probably the best single night performance of any WWE 2K Universe superstar ever. In the first 3 months of our second season, Zander Sokolov was taped and he went back to the ring. And folks, in Helsinki fashion, he destroyed and defeated AJ Styles to become the reigning, defending United States Heavyweight Champion. So in one night, not only did he defeat The Undertaker, 1, 2, 3, but in the same night, he defeated one of the most decorated worldly performers ever, AJ Styles, for the United States Heavyweight Championship. Two of the biggest victories in one night. It's just an incredible thing. But I want to talk about that final match at Money in the Bank that all of you saw. And I'm sure that most of the fans around the world who saw that match were just as surprised as I was. The Undertaker returning in big-time fashion with the purple gloves, the purple boots. It was almost like 1994 SummerSlam again. But nonetheless, it made no difference. Zander Sokolov showed up with the United States Heavyweight Championship around his waist, and he agreed to defend it at Money in the Bank against The Undertaker. That match was not for the weak at heart. You go back, you watch it. It was brutal. Absolutely, physically brutal. The Undertaker was taken to the limit. And then the final closing moments of that matchup, The Undertaker had barely had enough energy to stand on his feet. Sokolov, in an attempt to throw Taker back into the ring, Taker's knees buckled and he hit the apron. He fell on the ground. And to prevent a double countout, Sokolov very cleverly rolls back into the ring, picking up the final victory over The Undertaker. Ironically, just as it had ended at WWE Payback, a countout victory. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not the most important thing. Let's talk about the fact that reports were pouring in that night. The Undertaker suffered lacerations to his back, he suffered a blown knee, and he also suffered a mild concussion. When he was carted to the back and taken to an emergency medical facility, those were the medical reports coming back to us via the Truth Wire. And it does not look like The Undertaker will be fit to take on Sokolov any further. And, of course, as more becomes available, as more information becomes available with this situation and these circumstances surrounding the dead man, we'll make that available to you. But speaking of injuries, there's actually two more reports that I'd like to discuss in this broadcast. And that is Joseph Ward and Sting. That feud absolutely took us by surprise. And we're going to go back to the news here where we can actually show you it's actually amazing. We're going to have to fast forward here. And we're going to move up to the pay-per-view. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Sting. Now, for those of you who watch this broadcast, you know that we don't really view the emails. We don't showcase the text messages, anything like that. Doctors did not clear Sting to compete due to the severity of his injury. Okay, his injury. Excuse me. Wow. And he was kept from the ring until his recovery. Now, this is the result of his final match with Joseph Ward. I'm going to have to say that night was probably the most uncomfortable night I've ever spent as general manager. The man they call Sting showed up to take on Joseph Ward, not just to prove a point, but to show a young kid that when you challenge the best, the legendary in professional wrestling, you're in for the worst night of your life. Well, for absolutely 2 brutal months, these two put on clinics in the middle of the ring. Joseph Ward, in an interview shortly before Extreme Rules went on the air, told the entire world what we had already figured out. Sting did not have his number, and he said that Extreme Rules would be the last time you saw the man they call Sting as you have known him previously. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go back and you watch that brutal 25-minute match, It went on for 25 minutes. I was in gorilla position, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. Sting went out there with a mild concussion. He went out there with a mild concussion. He put his heart, his soul, and his body on the line for one reason: the W in the column over Joseph Ward. The most important thing to him was to be victorious, to defeat Joseph Ward, and he could not get it done. He couldn't get it done. Flicker. That is the name of Joseph Ward's finisher, the super kick. He calls it flicker because, much like light and darkness, it's a flicker of light. I don't even know what to make of that match. Joseph Ward and Sting tore each other apart. They gave everything they had, but when it was said and done, Joseph Ward defeated the man they called Sting. And the reports that came back immediately after we went on the air to my office were that Sting has concussion syndrome. I don't know if he's been misdiagnosed. I haven't actually received any more reports on his condition. I've actually spoken to Sting over the phone since this pay-per-view incident, since this match. He sounds to be in great spirits. He sounds to be in good health. But it doesn't look like you're going to see him anytime soon. You know, and I know, that the wellness policy in WWE says, and it instructs, it's a provision, that if a superstar suffers 2 or more concussions in a short time period, that it is mandatory that they take a year off out of action. A year. Well, I'm going to make some phone calls. We're definitely going to look more into this. Like I said before, I've spoken to Sting, but no questions, no conversation about his condition was had at that time. We'll get more to you as it becomes available, and that information will be revealed via the Truth Wire on Truth Talk. And it's really a sad thing to see a great legend have a phenomenal, knock yourself down, kick-ass match with Joseph Ward, and this be the end result. Competition truly has a massive price. We're going to talk about another epic showdown, another epic clash. Let's talk about Shinsuke Nakamura. And you're not going to see the feud listed here because it ended in a very uncustomary manner. Shinsuke Nakamura came out on SmackDown after WWE Payback, and he brought the music to Hannibal Matsuda. He just brought the music to him. He took it to him and absolutely did everything he could to shake him down, and it didn't work for him. Shinsuke Nakamura had one of the most difficult 4-week periods that I've ever seen of any superstar that's ever competed in 2K Universe. And the result of that were 4 broken ribs and a serious concussion. It was at the hands of Hannibal Matsuda. Now, for those of you who saw Extreme Rules, I booked the match. It was a triple threat match between Jinder Mahal, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Hannibal Matsuda for the WWE Heavyweight Championship. It was not for the weak at heart. Every competitor in that match took it to the limit. No one had anything to give. There was sweat, there was blood, there was exhaustion. But at the end of the night, the mist ruled the world. Hannibal Matsuda defeated Shinsuke Nakamura in the middle of the ring to become the reigning and defending WWE Heavyweight Champion. And you can go back and you can watch Extreme Rules and watch that triple threat match. It was brutal. It was a brutal match, but at the end, the mist ruled the world. Matsuda picking up the WWE Heavyweight Championship. Now, following that championship win, we all thought that Shinsuke was headed to Money in the Bank for an obvious championship contendership, right? That's not what happened. He continued to compete against Hannibal Matsuda on SmackDown. And in the midst of competition, Shinsuke Nakamura was put on the shelf. Ladies and gentlemen, with what? Just as Sting had experienced with Joseph Ward, Shinsuke Nakamura had taken too many knees to the head, and he's now indefinitely out of action with a very serious traumatic brain injury. That is what I was told by doctors at the emergency medical facility that very unfortunate night on SmackDown. For those of you who have been keeping up and have been watching the content on our channel, the TCN channel, there were 2 weeks in a row where Nakamura went out there injured. He absolutely could barely stand up straight. He went out there injured because he wanted to defeat Hannibal Matsuda. And for those of you who kept up, you know that he did. He did the impossible. He picked up the victory on Hannibal Matsuda, and then the following week on SmackDown, Hannibal Matsuda tells me and Vince McMahon that he wants Nakamura in the opening match on SmackDown. And let me tell you, folks, you go back and you watch some of this content and you see what I'm talking about. It's just absolutely knockdown brutal. He absolutely takes Nakamura to the limit. He defeats him 1, 2, 3. The following week on SmackDown, there's no Nakamura. I got off a plane. I showed up to work. There was no Shinsuke Nakamura. I was disappointed. These two were two of my biggest selling points for Money in the Bank. But as all of you know, in professional wrestling, these things happen. And I still don't know what to say. I've spoken with Shinsuke's doctors, and he's actually going to make a speedy recovery, but they're advising him to stay home. They're advising Shinsuke to take a year off. So Sting and Shinsuke Nakamura will probably not be seen on TCN for 12 months. As more becomes available with these circumstances, these injury circumstances, we're going to let you know. But it's very sad. It's very, very sad. But in moving with the feeling of the moment, there is some very good news I would like to share with the members of the Truthman and Company Network channel, the subscribers, the viewers, all the people who make our product a success in 2K Universe Season 2. I got on a plane 2 nights ago with Dave Bautista, and I flew down to Miami, Florida, to meet with Ace Boone. Now, for those of you who don't follow mixed martial arts, in the world of UFC, Ace Boone is one of the most decorated and celebrated fighters ever. He's fought in Brazil, he's fought in Puerto Rico, he has fought in Japan, he's fought all over the world. The nickname that they've given him is the one you probably have recognized him by, Psychotic. I got off that plane in Miami, Florida, and I had one of the lengthiest conversations I've ever had with any athlete I've ever had the privilege to sign. Ace Boone is going to be coming north to NYC, right here where I'm standing, in the middle of our high-rise headquarters in the heart of New York City. He's going to fly here, and he's going to have an open forum with myself, Vince, and of course Dave Bautista, who helped facilitate this meeting. I've seen Psychotic fight. I've actually seen him wrestle too. When I had the chance to visit London for the Wrestle Kingdom celebration that came from New Japan over there, and I actually that's the first time I ever actually met Ace Boone. But Psychotic is very interested in coming to sign a 2K Universe contract. If this happens, there is one man that Psychotic would like to get his hands on. And you're just going to have to wait for that open forum to figure out who that is. But ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this raucous episode of Truth Talk. I thank you so much for your viewership. I thank you for your subscriptions. And I ask that you continue to support the Truthman & Company Network channel as we continue this amazing journey through Season 2 of 2K Universe. This is your General Manager, Sean Truthman, signing off.